My kept telling the security guard, I'm out. And he's like, no, you can't come over. My friends aren't gonna know where I'm at. I'm out here. Like, you're out. I might have been 21. He was in college.
Better, and I was still.
Oh my god. I see something on Facebook that said I feel sorry for all the teachers today.
All their iPads are gone. Come on, like,
Because they were all local kind of wrong.
Back, we'll see how it goes. Sometimes it doesn't. How you doing? Good. Did you like the stuff here? They'll tell us.
All right, I guess it's time. We will get started. Thank you for coming to tonight's school board candidates forum. It's being co-sponsored by the PTSA and the BEA, so we thank you for being here tonight. Just some ground rules. We're going to follow the nonprofit vote, kind of their rules. So we're going to try to cover a broad range of topics tonight. We're going to follow the equal time question and answer format. So we'll rotate who goes first on questions. Everybody will get 2 minutes to answer the question. Cindy Walensky's in the front row. If you see the yellow sign, that means you have 15 seconds left. If you get to the red sign, it's like soccer. You've been red carded, so you can finish up what you're talking about, but that just helps you kind of know where you're at. We will not have any direct questions between the candidates, and we're going to focus on the issues tonight. None of the candidates will be asked to pledge to or agree to any specific positions as advocated by any groups or political parties. So we will also, if you notice on the side table, there's a basket, there's some writing utensils and note cards. If you have a question you'd like asked during the forum, go ahead and jot it down and throw it in the basket, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. We kind of scheduled an hour and a half for the forum tonight. We'll just see how things are going, and we don't have a timeline that we have to follow necessarily. So we're going to start with tonight's first question, which is simply allowing the candidates to introduce themselves and tell us why they're running for school board. Ryan, you'll start with this question.
Hello, my name is Ryan Obermuller. I live just outside of the town of Becker. I've been here for 14 years. I have 3 kids in the district, one in 5th grade, one in 1st grade, and one in school readiness, the early childhood program. I've had a wife in the district, I believe it's 16 years now, and I decided to run for school board because I'm at the early stages of my kids' career, and I want to make sure that Becker stays as prominent as they are.
My name is Aaron Jurek. I'm running for school board.
I'm running for Becker School Board because, like Ryan, I think Becker is a great place to live. It's a great place for education. It has plenty of opportunities, both at school and around the community, sports and others. My wife, Kelly, and I moved here in '99. Actually, she never really moved away. We moved here in '99. We have 4 boys in the district, ranging from senior in high school down to a 6th grader. And they've all gone through the program from school readiness all the way through high school. I am a teacher in the Sauk Rapids district, and I know the value of education, and I know that Becker has a great system and great offerings. So we've chosen to keep our kids here. And this is one way that I can be involved and help give back to the school and community without collecting a paycheck from the district. Thank you.
Mike?
I am Mike Snickelberg. I've been in the district for about 18 years. I was on the school board in Howard Lake, Waverly, Winstead for 10 years before that, but when I moved out of the district, I could no longer be on the board. I first looked at running for school board when I moved here. I'm particularly interested in curriculum because I was on the curriculum advisory committee there. In 2000, there were many people running for the school board, and I didn't know enough about the district at that time to be confident that I should be running. So I've been here now 18 years. I've been on the district curriculum advisory committee here for maybe 15 years, and I'm interested in helping out the school board and also helping out with developing a curriculum that meets the new technology changes that we need in this new lifestyle we're in. And so I'm throwing my hat in the ring for that. Thank you.
I'm Mark Swanson. Currently also serve on the board with Aaron. We were elected at the same time 8 years ago. I'm running for school board because my daughters, I still have one daughter that's is a junior this year here at Becker High School. And I was on the board for the other 2 and coming through and graduating. And so I'll continue with that. She wanted me to run. She asked me to continue doing that. We often have conversations about what's going on in Becker schools and helping her learn. To me, it's also a learning experience for her as we talk about the various things. I also, and that's probably more where we met, Mike, is that I was on the curriculum advisory committee before I started on the school board, understanding what we needed to do for curriculum. When I started, that was the year we implemented the iPads here at the high school, and I've served off and on the technical, on our technical advisory for that, as well as several other committees here, from the school board, including activities committee and so forth. I think I enjoy just the involvement, continuing to help understand what's going on in the district. If you remember 8 years ago when Aaron and I came on, there was a lot of upset, I think, between the board, the superintendent, what was going on in the school and all of those things. And I think Aaron and I have done a really good job of bringing back board governance, that we don't get involved in the day-to-day operations. We don't have axes to grind. We're just here to help make sure that the school district is run smoothly, that we have financial stability, and that the policies are set correctly. And that's what I want to continue. I think this coming year is going to be a challenge again as we start looking for a new superintendent, and kind of want to make sure that we continue that into the next administration and continue with the smooth operation. Thanks.
Thank you. I should note that Randy Bader is the 5th candidate for school board, and he was invited tonight, but he had a previous commitment, and he couldn't be here. Second question, Aaron, while you start with this one, what are your priorities in the coming year and maybe the next year after that? If you had to pick 1, 2, or 3 that you think are most important, what would they be?
I think the biggest priority, and Mark alluded to a bit, is Dr. Malone has announced his retirement, so we will be focusing on finding his replacement. So being a part of that and finding a candidate that can step into the superintendent role and to continue to lead Becker and help it to grow, while it maintains its small town feel, course offerings, and all that we offer at the Becker schools. So that's probably right now the biggest priority, because that's what's on the board. And I see Dr. Malone here, and I'd just like to thank Dr. Malone for his years of service. Mark kind of alluded that when Dr. Malone was, well, when we came on the board, Dr. Malone was recently had been hired, and kind of had a little turmoil going between the board and the superintendent, and the staff. And so I thank Dr. Malone for his service that he's done, and I look forward to finding somebody who can continue on with that. After that, I guess the next year or the following year is our budget. If you've been watching and knowing, we were deficit spending for a little bit, came on, and we kind of stopped the bleeding and kind of slowly building up our budget. So I just, part of my wants as a school board member is to make sure that we have the funds that we need to continue the programs. We went through cuts a couple years ago, and it's not fun and it's not enjoyable for anybody when you gotta start cutting programs and staff to try to stay inside your budget. So I guess my next priority after that would probably be budgetary, make sure we still have the funds to operate. Thank you.
Probably one of my first priorities will be trying to get up to speed on some of the policies that they have here in Becker. Having been a school board member, I understand that school boards are run by the policies that the board establishes and puts in place. In Howard Lake, when I first got on the board there, we also had some turmoil with the superintendent at the time. We were very, very fortunate to get a new superintendent, and it is amazing how much it turned that school around just to have a good person on board, because they run by the book. They're very fair to people. We have to be harsh sometimes in budgeting, and so you have to understand that they have to do that. So I look forward to kind of helping pick out a new superintendent and interviewing some candidates for that if I'm elected.
Great. You know, Steve, Dr. Malone, I think Aaron said it very well, and we thank you for your time here. Without your leadership and that movement forward, I don't know where we would be right now, but it's definitely, you know, on that upward trend. With your retirement, I think we're looking for the type of person that can come in and continue that upward movement, the support of the staff, all of those things that I think you've made some good, strong strides in doing, and again, we appreciate your time here. So that's the biggest priority, and you know, as we've started to look at that, and the pieces that we need to fill, you know, I think we have a good amount of work ahead of us to fill the shoes. So again, I think it has to be the number one priority here in the next year. As Aaron said, and I might go a little bit farther, I think the second part is the financial piece. I mean, we were deficit spending our first term, both years we came to budget time, we had to make cuts. And we had to increase fees and all of those types of things. And we don't want to be in that situation again. I think, you know, last 4 years we've done pretty good. We've been able to get two-year contracts and with our teachers and the staff, and create the stability there in our finances. But we have more work to do, and you know, we're going to be coming out with a referendum here during this next term. Whoever serves there, we're going to have to, in order to maintain the current staffing levels that we have, to continue with the improvements, to do things like a turf field and those types of things. Those things will have to be done in the next term, and those will be the next priorities coming. Thanks.
Ryan?
I guess I would concur with everything so far that Aaron, Mike, and Mark have said. One thing that is special to me is with everything that's happened in the last 6 years with mental health and stuff like that. In the coming year and stuff, I'd like to look at expanding the mental health avenues that we have here at the district. We've got the wellness center, which is great. I know there's a ton of kids that are getting service, not only at the high school, but with the contract that we have with the intermediate and middle school as well. So that, to piggyback off of everything else that everyone else has said, mental health is a spot that I would like to touch as well.
Thank you. Next question might be just a tad bit redundant, but Link, we'll start with you. And what has been your personal involvement with education in the Becker community? I know some of you already touched on this, but we'll go there next.
Well, as I mentioned, I've been on the curriculum advisory committee for, I think, about 15 years. And I've worked with the teachers on developing new curriculum. My interest personally is math and science, but I realize there's a rounded program that needs to be done. But as an engineer working for a power utility, I understand that science and mathematics is critical to what is the future of that industry. And so I work with students at the University of Minnesota and come into our office and, intern for a while. And I always ask them, did you learn in high school what you needed to learn when you went to college? Well, there's always some gap, but high schools have come a long way in teaching calculus and higher math courses, making those available, especially through the technology that's out there. The other personal involvement I've had is for a short time, maybe about 4 months, I had two of my grandkids living with me. They were kind of in a transitional period with their father and mother. And so and one of them had some special education challenges, he had behavioral challenges, I should say. And so I had to work with the special ed staff and the counselors here to try to figure out how to make that program for him and make that work at home. And my eyes were open on the challenges that have come about because of some of the special education needs that kids have. So that's one of my personal involvements. I was very pleased with how the staff handled it. Thank you.
For me, I've been on the school board the last 8 years. The last 6 years as the board clerk, which means that I sign all of the papers that come through the district. And just looking at what we're doing, and started with the curriculum advisory, and I think curriculum is a key. Obviously it's the key aspect of the school district, but it's so much more than that. When we talk about activities, and that's why I brought up earlier, about turf field and that kind of stuff, being able to get on the fields early, being able to participate in those activities that grow teamwork and all of the other pieces, in addition to just the, in the classroom teaching, that there's a lot of teaching that gets done, on the fields, and continue to work with that. I've been a supporter of the arts program, so it goes a little bit bigger than science and technology, but they start calling it STEAM now, including arts in there as well. So whether it's the 3-act plays or the other plays that we support and come and watch those, the choir and band that we come and watch and support, and the fundraisers. I know there's a fundraiser going on for coffee now, so you're able to buy some, support the activities that are going on in the school district. I think those are the big things that we can make sure that we continue to support education and continue to talk about it in the community about what's going on here at Becker. That, the big asset that we have with our teachers and the programs and everything else that we have here, making sure that people understand that. So those are the things that I do to support education.
My involvement, as I said earlier, I have a wife that's been in the district for 16 years in elementary school, so as you can probably imagine, in the earlier parts of our marriage, I was with her cutting laminate and putting up the borders and all of that stuff, and watching her do papers and stuff like that, so I learned very early what goes on in a classroom and what a teacher has to do to keep her class going and all of that. I've also volunteered in my kids' classrooms whenever I could. This last year I was, with the help of Pat Brown, which is a social worker at the primary building, I was part of, I think, 10 or so people that created the Watchdog program, which is for dads, father figure in the schools all the time, volunteering in classrooms, free play, lunchroom, whatever it is, just so that kids can see. Normally, the theory behind that is moms are always the ones that go to the classroom, always volunteer at school, so on and so forth. So we wanted to get that male figure in the buildings. And then over the last 6 years with our family foundation, Dylan's Hope, I've helped the school district with the mental health aspect of the school, helping create the wellness center. This year, we helped give money so that we could help cover the social workers at the intermediate and middle school. And actually next Wednesday, we have a speaker coming in by the name of Reggie Dabbs that is coming to talk to all the kids and having an evening program as well for them as well.
Personal involvement began, well, 18 years ago, 17 years ago, when my oldest was 1 year old. We began the ECFE programs, and then I became a part of the ECFE advisory board when I think my second one came along. I served a couple of years in the PTA, and then of course as a school board for the last 8 years. And along with all that, being the parent who has been involved in meetings at school, conferences, all that goes along with being a parent who's 18 years, I guess, we've been involved as far as bringing the kids to school, whether it be night school, ECFE, all the way through senior year this year. Now have just the middle school and high school left, which is kind of interesting that we're down to just 2 schools. But my wife and I are both educators, so not a personal involvement in the Becker schools, but an understanding of the school systems at which we work. Again, an elementary experience, and she's a middle school teacher, so I have that experience coming with me, and the understanding of how schools work, and things like that. Thank you.
Mark, next question, we'll start with you. And I think there was kind of near unanimous agreement that the next year is going to involve a new superintendent search. But beyond that, if you think about your term lasting 4 years, what are some of the biggest challenges you think the district will face, maybe just generally about education in the next 4 years, and what would you try to do to address them?
Yeah, and I guess with that caveat, you know, the couple of things that I see, you guys, a couple guys have mentioned the mental health aspects of it. There's no doubt that that's one of the biggest areas with the track program, the Together Reaching Area Kids, involvement with that, making sure that that's adequately supported here at the school. And you know, with our board goals, we said, you know, talking about the mental health aspects, you know, making sure that the people are cared for so that they can both adequately learn, adequately teach, all of the things that go along with that. So it's all of the pieces of mental health that we need to make sure that we take care of. The other thing that I'd throw in there, I think, is the continued application of technology in education. You know, I've noted over the last couple years, other districts have been growing their online programs. And we're just in our infancy of getting online programs, some online classes up and running. And we need to continue to advance that, to stay caught up, and supporting that, not just with the iPads and the iPad apps and the libraries and electronic books and that kind of stuff, but actually developing the curriculum around being able to teach online, capturing that revenues and stuff from kids that are basically enrolling in other districts at this point now for those online programs. So we can offer all of the full things like German and French and other foreign languages, as well as those other offerings that can be online. So I think those are the couple of things that I'd pick out that over this next term need to continue.
I think, two things that I would like to focus on is, one, as Mark alluded to, is the mental health. I think I've made it a bold statement since tonight has started that that's one of my focuses outside of if I was elected school board, that I continue to strive to make sure that not only the school has what they need for mental health, but the community as a whole. The second thing that I would like, that I think we're gonna have to focus on, and Mark alluded to this in a previous answer, is the budget. We've got a referendum that's going to be coming, teachers' contracts are going to be coming, and we've gotta be frugal and fiscally responsible all at the same time and make sure that we can meet everyone's needs within the dollars that we have.
I think one of the biggest challenges in the next 4 years is space. You know, we're seeing a little bit more growth again this year. And along with that growth comes space issues. And currently, well, we just added on 4 classrooms at the primary school because we needed space. So that growth is gonna continue, and that need is gonna continue to move its way up to the schools as those children grow older. But I see that growth within the district and an open enrollment. And I think one of the biggest challenges is how open enrollment plays into a district as far as funding, busing, and that space situation. And I'm all for open enrollment. I think it helps us to offer more to our students in the district here with the money that it brings in. I just want to make sure that our open enrollment is not going to be pushing class sizes higher, crowding our classrooms and crowding the space that we have in each of the buildings in the district. Along with that, the budget thing, and as Brian had just mentioned, referendum that'll be coming at us here in a year, and all those contracts, and trying to, again, give a decent wage to all the staff members while keeping within our budget.
Well, when I wrote down my draft answer for this question, I said, I'm looking forward to asking students, teachers, and parents this question. But as I started thinking about this a little more, I think the biggest challenge for the district with a new superintendent and a referendum coming up is gonna be, how do you keep a good attitude for education in the community? Some people are gonna balk at a new superintendent. He's not gonna be maybe as good as the one we have, hopefully better. But when you do a referendum, it's a big challenge because people don't like taxes. And when I was in Howard Lake, there was some bad mouthing going on in the entire community. It was terrible because it hurts the students first. I mean, and that's bad when parents are bad mouthing a school, students get disenchanted with that school. So I think the biggest challenge we have is, how do you keep this good education attitude that Becker has? You know, parents are proud of the school, students are proud of the school. We have to keep that going over the next few years as we face these tough budget challenges and some new staff.
I think I already answered.
Oh, you did, I'm sorry, you did. Anything more to say? All right, we'll come back to Ryan starting this one then. Maybe hard for Minnesotans to talk about, but what makes you stand out as a candidate? So, it's your time to maybe share something, each of you, that maybe people don't know about you, or something, a skill that you possess that people might not be aware of, that you think would be a good skill to have as a school board member.
Well, first and foremost, I wanna say that I think everybody up here is qualified, and I think any three of us out of the 5 that are running would probably make great school board members. I would say the one thing that that I bring to the table is from the budgetary and fiscal standpoint. I'm an accountant by trade, so numbers is my life. So I like diving into numbers, I like analyzing numbers, and that's what I would like to do if I was elected, is be part of that budgetary process and see what I can find, what I can do to maybe shift money that maybe could go somewhere else to a different program or so forth.
What makes me stand out? I guess being a parent of 4 students currently in the district gives me the understanding of how things are going at schools, what's happening at the schools. My 20 years of being a teacher in the education field helps me to understand the day-to-day runnings of a school and how decisions made at this table here will trickle down and it can affect the classroom. You know, simple little things of time change and how it's going to affect the lunch and how you try to feed all the kids through. I live it every day as a teacher. I mentioned my wife also teaches, so we have a lot of discussions around education. What's happening in her district, what's happening in Sauk Rapids, and of course what's happening here. And along with that, I get the opportunity to see things that have worked in other districts, things that seem to be working really well, things that have been tried and don't work so well. So I can bring all that knowledge to the table and to the discussions that happen here at the board table. And I think my 8 years on the board, we've brought the district from deficit spending to a positive fund balance. I think we've done a good job of being fiscally responsible, making those hard decisions and trying to cut away whatever extras were there without harming education so much. But I think my experience in my daily life as an educator helps me when I get to come to this table right here.
I guess I bring some prior experience with the school board, so I understand how school boards work through policy and procedures that are written down, so they're very clear on how the school board operates. I also bring a background of having gone through numerous changes in the types of technology. When I graduated high school, we didn't have a calculator. And now you got the power of a computer in some people's smartphones. Some of that technology has worked, some of that technology has not worked. And so I bring some experience in seeing technology phases that people have tried to implement that have failed disastrously and cost a lot of money. So I bring that experience, and then plus, I'm willing to talk to people. I work in national groups, and we all discuss the issues, try to come up with compromises, work through the problems, make sure we're all on the same page and not talking ourselves in circles. So we'll have to bring that sort of team building experience to this as we move forward into some of these new challenges.
Yeah, for me, I start off with, I think, like Aaron had said, the experience that we've had over the last 8 years coming from that deficit side, understanding, the decisions that we made, and moving forward in a positive manner to have some financial stability at this point. As part of that, and it's just a principle to me. I don't, there is some pay that comes along with school board. I have never put in at any time have I put in for that pay. I have not been paid at any time for any of our meetings or anything. I think that's my service to the community. And that service aspect is a big part of what I believe in, whether it's at the Legion or anything else, the community being involved in what's going on here in the churches and the other organizations around, I think is important, including Boy Scouts and the rest. So I think those are some of the strong points I bring to that, the connection to the community. And just overall, my belief in organizational excellence, that we can get better than what we are right now. That's what I work with in business and owning my own business as a consultant and advising other people what to do. You know, how do we set goals? How do we challenge what's going on so we can get better? That's been my push since I've been on the board, and I think we've done a pretty good job of doing that. And I'd like to continue that for another 4 years.
All right, I guess our next question, we'll start with Aaron. And this relates probably specifically to policy 417 of the school district, which deals with drug use and abuse education. So what role, if any, do you think the school district has to help combat illegal drug use, since that's a big thing in our society? And I know it's maybe not the top of the educational questions we have going on right now, but it definitely affects many families and students. So what would you say is the school district's role to help in that situation?
It's interesting that that's a question. We just had watched a little blurb on TV about vaping and the dangers of vaping and how it's targeting kids. And I know that it is a concern here in the Becker district. I know vaping is, it's around, and I guess it seems to be not a big deal or not a concern. And students, they're drawn to it. Along with that, I saw that meth use is up 75%. So our stakes as a district is to educate, whether it's math, science, budgetary issues, health choices, which would be the drug choice. When I was growing up, DARE had just come out and was being introduced, and I know that for a while there we had Kids Choice. And I know there's value in bringing that education into the schools just to help kids understand that there are alternatives, and then there are safe alternatives to drugs and alcohol. So I think it's just, it's another piece of education that we need to have with our students. And I think that as a district, we house 90% of the kids in the community come through our doors, that it is our responsibility to help educate them in making choices that are going to provide them with a healthy life that's not going to set them up for addictions or health problems in the future.
I think there's a lot of pressure on students these days. When I was answering the questions, I thought about anxiety, and then 2 nights ago, there was talk, they had four people who were counselors who said the kids will tell these counselors things that they will not tell their parents or even their friends. There's so much pressure these days to succeed, and I don't know whether that's part of the drug use, but there's also an impression that in this day and age, I can't succeed as a student. I mean, how do you get a job somewhere these days? I mean, it takes hard work, and so nobody wants to hire newbies. And so that kind of counseling has to be out there to listen to kids, to get the kids to talk, because I think if you can figure out how to channel some of that anxiety, not all kids are going to be the successful person that they might envision, or maybe their parents are putting pressure on them to be very successful, and that might be some part of the problem. So those folks, the counselors, have to listen to the kids and figure out if, what's going to help this student. And the school board's responsibility is then to listen to the teachers and the counselors and the students and figure out if we can put that program in place. And anxious kids these days is tough. I have a granddaughter who's just graduated from high school, and she's struggling with trying to get her taxes figured out properly so she can get her FAFSA filled out, and she doesn't really have a good support system to encourage her to go on to school. She has it's just tough for her to do this. And part of my job as a grandparent is kind of step in. And I have to look at these opportunities with my grandkids, and I hope teachers and students and staff can take those same opportunities to say, this kid has a problem, we need to figure out whether there's a program that can help. And that's the school board's responsibility, is to listen to staff and put those in place.
Yeah, I mean, I think as with any other policy, there's not a one-size-fits-all answer. Unfortunately, I mean, that's kind of some of the things that we're tasked with is setting those policies. I think those are the discussions, I mean, when we're activities committee meeting and we're talking about whether or not a person should be a captain or not, when they've had a violation, when they were in middle school or whatever, I mean, kind of those zero tolerance policies to penalize somebody forever, I mean, that really is discouraging, that adds to that anxiety and those things that that I think Mike mentioned here. You know, but I think at the same time, you need to balance that with, you know, how do you support the kids adequately to make sure that they aren't falling into those addictions and substance abuse and, you know, how do you create policies that, you know, discourage that as well. So I mean, I think it's a balancing act, and I think, you know, in writing the policies that we've written in the time that I've been on the board, I think that's often been a discussion. You know, the way policies come into effect, you know, that there's a first reading where we get to look at it and say, is there something we should challenge here? You know, we read it out loud for everybody to come and give us feedback, and asking the staff, asking the community, you know, how is this going to affect us? How can we, you know, also provide that support alongside this, and what things do we outline in the policy as outreach and ways to get through any anxiety or difficulties. And then when we come to the second reading, the adoption of it, you know, making sure that all of those things have been incorporated correctly. I mean, that's how we get the policies that we put into place. It's how we, you know, understand and through that discussion, understanding what the needs are. So, you know, those policies, and you've got to support them the way they are.
One thing I think, in piggybacking off of Aaron's comments a little bit with educating is also communication. When the Wellness Center was created for other mental health reasons, Mark was the assistant principal, and there was, you know, nobody knew how to react, communicate, anything like that. And through the school board, kids were all of a sudden talking to other kids or teachers saying, I think somebody has a problem, or I think this person needs help. And next thing we know, we've got 25 to 50 kids in the wellness center getting the help they need for other reasons. I think we can take that same concept to a level that can also communicate on the drug and vaping and stuff like that, to not necessarily, whether it's counseling, whatever, to get the kids the help that they need, whether it's through families, whether it's through the school, what have you.
Okay, thank you. Mike, you're up first here on this one. What specific ideas do you have to foster stakeholder input with the district residents? So we live in a society where sometimes through Facebook and social media, if something happens, you can be one classroom away and still be the last to know compared to everybody else. So in this world of instant communication, how do you think we can increase or foster that stakeholder input throughout the district?
Well, I think the district already does a lot of that because this is being streamed online, so people can see it and hear these issues being talked as well. I think you just have to figure out how to listen to people and listen well to people. Sometimes what people are saying ends up internally. You can say that I'm hearing this, but you know they're saying this. I'm hearing something different. So you need to make sure people are communicating. As I said, attitude about education. If you hear somebody that's got a real serious problem and they're simply bad mouthing, you do have to address them. You have to talk to them and say, you know, what is your real problem? If you're saying this, you know, why are you really saying this? Is it because you met somebody, or you had a problem in school, or you had a problem with a teacher, or you know, your kid had a discipline problem? I've talked to parents who's called me up as a school board member and say, I don't know why my kid got this discipline and the other kid got that discipline. And I said, well, you talk to the superintendent or the principal, because they're the ones that dish out the discipline. So you just have to listen to them and find out what their real problem is, and figure out what the right answer is. And as a school board, we're gonna have to put in some mechanisms to listen to teachers, staff, students, parents. In social media these days, there's a lot of garbage out there as well. So I just encourage people, if they are gonna communicate with the school district, think about how they're gonna do that as well. You know, come up with a reasonable question or response or comment.
And actually, as we've been answering all of these questions, I've been kind of thinking about this one, and that the last one that I just talked about, how the policies are done, and, you know, and meetings and getting the input, brought this back to me, because I think it was, and we've talked about this as a board before, too, that it's one of the strangest things, that everybody is just happy to talk to you until you get on the school board, and then all of a sudden, they don't wanna talk to you anymore, because they're afraid that you're gonna say something to somebody that will, you know, but that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for, to solve the problems. If we don't know about it, we can't do anything about it. And I think, you know, you hear that from people all the time, but it really is the truth. And I think we have to go out and seek the input. We have to be part of the groups. We have to show up to activities, you know, go to the football game, go to the soccer games, go to the swim meets, all those things, and showing up to those events and having the conversation with the parents and say, how's it going? You know, what other feedback can we get? Again, activities are a big part of the education that we provide to the kids, as well as what's going on in the classroom. The other thing too is, don't forget to listen to your kids. When they come home and talk about their homework and talk about what's going on in school, you know, listen to them, you know, look and be involved as a parent. You know, do the feedback loop that Mike was talking about too. You can talk to your teacher, talk to the principals, make sure that information is getting back to the school, and encourage that to people. I think, you know, sometimes, and Steve, and no, when we get information and we're sending it back to the superintendent saying, here's some information that we heard, and you know, he's getting back to us. He's been great at doing that. That's one of the biggest things that I can say in communicating those things and making sure that feedback gets to the right place. So, thanks.
To piggyback off of your answer, Mark, it's funny how when you announce that you're running for school board, everyone has comments, everyone has questions, and until you end up on the board, a lot of those questions you can bring. It's almost as easy if you just brought those questions to the board itself, rather than, because myself or Mike, at least up here, won't have the answers anyways. Aaron and Mark would have better answers than what we would, but if we were on the board, we could at least address those. The other thing that the school board, or at least the district, has done, at least for stakeholders, they've had those surveys about the goals and trying to plan stuff, and once they get those answers, they do another survey to pit them, I don't want to say pit them against each other, but give a choice to try and get to the best answer possible, given the area that they're trying to do. I think that could be done maybe even more, or even like other candidates have said, you know, more communication sometimes is better than less communication, and whether you're inundated, you can choose whether or not you want to look at it, listen to it, read it, or whatever. Thank you.
Well, when Mark and I first came to the board, one of the things Dr. Malone had put in place was stakeholder input nights, and we would host a night for community members, and we'd have pizza and we'd bring them in, and we'd host a night for teachers and staff and bring them in and give them pizza, and then we had for parents, and just to gather information. I think we did it 3 years, and usually staff had a great turnout. Parents was not as good as staff, but it was there, and the community members we had, I think last one we had 8 people out of 200 and some invites, so. As a board, that's one of the things we've discussed quite a bit, is how do you get this feedback, how do you communicate with the district? So then Dr. Malone actually found, I think it's called Pairwise. I'm not sure if that's the actual name of it, but that's where we do the survey, and it goes on, and anybody can have an idea, put on the survey, And then it's come down to choice to choice. You know, we now have social media presence, which helps. You know, there's all the Facebook discussions out there about it. You know, and as a board member, I've taken many phone calls from people who come with me with concerns or questions, ideas. And as a school board member, I actually enjoy those conversations, be able to sit and listen to those people. Sometimes I can bring them to the board, most of the times I'll redirect and say, you know, have you brought this to the principal, or have you brought this to the superintendent? As far as issues or concerns, there's definitely a way that those are handled within the school system. But, you know, just listening, and I think Mike actually hit it when he said, you know, we just need to open that communication, and I think we need to do a better job of just listening and allowing the community and the staff members to just tell us. You know, sometimes they just want to tell us things just so we know and understand what's going on, just to give them that opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Mark, I think we're to you first. So we're in a little bit of a fantasy world. If we had a magic funding wand, so funding's not an issue for it, what would you like to see added to the school district? What's something out there that would be just something you think would be great opportunity for students? So we're not holding you to any budget or anything.
Yeah, until, you know.
Yeah, till the bill comes.
Might be a couple of months from now, but, and what we can currently do, right? You know, I think for me, and Aaron, you talked about space and that kind of stuff. You know, one of the things that we've been working on, that we haven't mentioned at this point is, with the community, is really the space management. We have a deficit of what's called rectangle fields, which is basically the fields that, you know, like football fields, soccer fields, those types of things, those rectangle fields to go play on. There's just not enough of them in the community. I mean, you looked around, do we have any basketball courts outside? Because we can't find any, you know, those types of things. If you could just, you know, plop things down, to me, those would be the things that are community assets. Again, that you can teach the learning that goes on the football field, the learning that goes on through activities, you know, and just the support of that. You know, we've had to cut back, and we don't, you know, especially being in the conference that we've been to this point, the other schools that are in our conference don't have, you know, JV, you know, 8th grade teams. You know, if we could participate in more of those around the state, I think our school district will benefit from that. Again, those extra fields, you know, being able to get on a field, not having to wait until it's thawed and, you know, it's getting soft and muddy, and having that turf field. I think those to me would be some priorities that I'd put out there. You know, again, but there's nothing, you know, you kind of balance that with what's going on in the classroom. You know, and keeping our class sizes small. So I mean, all of those funding things, yeah, if you had a magic wand, you can do it all. But that's not the world we live in, and balancing that, I think, is what belongs to the school board.
Two things that I would really like if I had the magic wand is, one, Mark alluded to space, but to piggyback off of space would be to have enough teachers in the district to get our class sizes back down to manageable levels. Like when I went to school, it was 17, 20 was huge when I was, and I don't recall when the last time we've been able to get 20 kids, down to 20 kids, one because of space, or two because of budget restrictions for teacher salaries and staffing and such. The other aspect, as I've alluded to pretty much all night, is the mental health aspect. So being able to have whatever I could have for counselors, whether it was a contract that we have with the intermediate, bring it down to the primary. You know, we're servicing, I think the last I heard, up to 50 kids in the wellness. I'd love to, if we could find out if it was 100 kids that we needed, we could do whatever we need to and give them the help that they need so that they can be successful. Thanks.
Space would obviously be the biggest issue. And if you go back to those first couple of years in the early 2000s, when our primary school was brand new and our middle school was brand new, we had space to move to different classrooms if we needed to have two classes together. We had rooms available to do that. We don't have rooms available. Along with that space would come the opportunity to bring your class size, like Ryan said, back down to that 15 or 20. One of my first years of teaching, I was actually teaching a class of 14 second and third graders, and then the next year I was up to 26, and it makes a difference. So if budgets were an issue, small class sizes, and space, so you have that room to be able to move around, you know, that you don't have to have gym at this time, but the gym would be available, or a gym would be available, take your kids in there to do brain activities or things like that. Green space, you know, we have land on the other side of the river there that's just dying to be developed. It's a great place to put rectangle fields. Turf field here on the football field would give us opportunities to use lacrosse, soccer, and football without worrying about wearing it out. And FIAD would have a place to go out right by the school without making a 10-minute trip down the lane to get to a green space. And the mental health Ryan's been talking about all night. And I want to thank you so much for all you've done with the Dylan's Hope and the Wellness Center here. One of my things as a teacher I've seen, and we've had discussions here at the board table, is how we do that, but I would love to see a counselor for each grade level that just goes with that grade level through the school so they can build that personal relationship with each student, and so the student can learn to trust them as somebody that really knows their lifestyle and where they've been. And I think that personal connection, if you get one counselor for every 200, 210 kids throughout every grade level, would be huge. Thanks.
There's no budget limit, right?
So the magic wand.
We've already spent, so you're,
I think what we have, what I would see would be figure out how to have as many social activities we need for students as we can get. As growing up as a kid, I didn't care about really the class sizes, or, you know, I wasn't in sports, but what I cared about was the opportunity to socialize with my fellow students. And we had teachers that would give us their classroom during the study hall period, and we'd go in there and play chess, we'd play cards, we'd work on our team projects together. And so having those sort of social relationships, I think, helps build character, helps build an understanding between the students that are in that group. And it helps them talk about things that are bothering them. So I think we need to have as many social activities we can that the students might want to start. Whether it's, you know, a chess club, photography club, science club. We've got the robotics club here. That's a fantastic place for some students to focus their skills. But there are other students who just may want to sit and talk. No real organized activity, but they might just need to sit and talk about what's going on in their lives. So I think if we can get social activity space and people to help maybe foster and encourage that, facilitate that, I think that's what I would spend my money. It's not my money, somebody else's money.
All right, I think we're back to Ryan. So Ryan, question to you, what's one thing you think Becker Schools does really well, and what's one thing we could maybe improve upon?
The one biggest thing I think they do is, for the most part, they have the kids' interest at heart. The teachers are awesome. I can't, partly biased, I gotta admit, my wife's a teacher, so I gotta be fully transparent there. But they will bend over backwards to do what the kids need and want, and will communicate with the parents as to the best of their ability. One of the things that I think we can work on is just morale and communication throughout the district. I think with the new with the new superintendent and all of that, I think that's gonna be even more important than ever as the communication doesn't stop.
One thing I think Becker does great is, community, you know, having lived in Becker for almost 20 years, and having kids go through it, the staff feels like a community. When you're in the schools and you talk to different staff members, the custodian, the cooks, paras, teachers, whatever it might be, you feel like you're part of a community, and I think that's what Becker does great, is it makes it feel, we're growing, and we've grown quite a bit since 2000, but it still has a small town feel, and I think that's what draws people to Becker, is somehow we've maintained that close-knit community, and I know, along with that community, that's the staff and stuff, but I know, the BEA does a huge fundraiser every year, and thanks to Dylan's Hope again, but looking out for the community and finding somebody or families in the community that need the help and raise funds for that. So I think that's one of the things that the Becker Schools has nailed, is just the community piece. When the staff feels like a community, it trickles on down to the students, and if the students feel part of the community, it trickles home to the parents. One of the things I think we can work on is, Mark kind of talked about the technology, online courses, college actually right here at our school, be able to earn those credits without having to leave our campus. But the online courses, I think, are something that they're not going away. In fact, they're coming more and more. And it's a way that we can keep kids in our system, that we can capture that money without it going out to other districts.
I think the Becker schools have done a great job of having a reputation of being a good school. I think, you know, everybody knows that the Becker school in the state, everybody knows that Becker has good schools. So I think we need to keep that up and continue to work. What we have to work on is to continue to keep that good reputation up. And not only has technology changing, but the economy is kind of shifting around and changing in the district. I think my impression is we've had a lot of contractor businesses in this area. They got hit pretty hard back in the mid-2000s and 2010 with some of the economic problems, and that affected a lot of students, because I've known some neighbors who, you know, their family lost a job and they had to move, and while they're going through those struggles, some of these kids are struggling. So we're gonna have to make sure that we continue to work as a community, not only have a good school reputation, but also make sure that we're taking the entire student body along with that. Because there are some people that are starting to fall through the cracks in various spots, and we need to make sure we don't lose them.
Yeah, and I agree with you guys. I mean, the things we do well, in creating community and educating the kids, I think, you know, we have that reputation throughout the state. You know, when you go to, the statewide assemblies, Minnesota School Board Associations, those types of things, you know, that's what we're known for. That's what we get asked about, you know, how are you doing this and that kind of stuff, and continuing to push that to the next levels and so forth. And I think I also agree, the things we need to work on in communication. I see some of our city council candidates and so forth, and people that, you know, those other organizations that we need to interface with, whether it's city council and understanding what the common spaces, what our community spaces are doing, you know, the Sherburne County, all of those things. I think, you know, participating in those other organizations and what's going on, I think we have to continue to expand in that and work that communication so that, again, we're being efficient, that we're leveraging, you know, the resources, the assets that we have in concert with those other organizations, and understanding those pieces of what we need to do to do the best we can for our community.
Thank you. Aaron, I think we're to you. And do you have a vision of how we can close the gap between the kids who struggle and also taking into the account the kids who are average, and then the kids who are succeeding and maybe need enrichment?
Well, that's a big question.
That's a big question. 2 minutes.
I think, and again, Mark had just mentioned the Minnesota School Boards Association. You know, I think this is one of those things that Becker actually does very well. I think since we've kind of been talking about it and it's been on the horizon, I think we've done a good job of closing that gap. I think the fact that our staff members are so concerned about every kid that walks through the door that they get that extra help. I think that helps with those kids who are struggling. Early identification of struggles, get those kids the programs they need or help that they need, gets them on track to close that gap. And I guess on the other end of that gap, I'm not so sure you want to close that gap. If you have kids who are willing to shoot for the stars and take those chances and push it, why would you want to hold them down? Or, I mean, you know, it's just one of those spots where you're always going to have those kids who are pushing every envelope to see how far they can push a topic and they want them more challenged. I guess that might be a gap maybe you want to open up, is those kids who are self-learners and who can go out and do those things, to open that gap up for them. But I think as far as closing that achievement gap for the struggling kids and the average kids, I think what we have in place is working. I guess Ryan's been talking about the mental health thing is probably the biggest thing for those kids. A lot of those kids who are struggling have other issues besides just academics. We're just seeing it come through in the schools, so to be able to help those kids deal with the life that they have when they come into our school, we hopefully close that gap up. Thank you.
Well, I'm not an educational professional, but as far as, I go the other way. The kids who are succeeding, the kids who are trying to strive for the stars, I think there's so much technology and access to information out there. I think what they need is help with maybe focusing and figuring out how to sort through all that stuff and just do it on their own. There are certain kids who are probably ahead of the teachers in terms of use of technology and learning things. The average student, you know, that's kind of where the middle of the road is. That's why they call them average, and so we'll have to focus on them quite a bit. To me, the struggling students are the ones that the teachers and the staff have to identify. And again, as I said before, it's the school board's responsibility to listen to that input and feedback and figuring out how we can put in place activities or policies or programs that can help those struggling students. Because I think there's more and more people that are struggling personally.
Yeah, so first, I mean, I really kind of agree with what Aaron was talking about for sure, that I don't think we want to close the gap. I think we want to meet the kids where they are and encourage them continue on that growth curve. The ones that are struggling, and I think mental health or the drug thing we talk about there's usually something underlying that, and again, creating the procedures, policies, the support that we can do as a school board. But I can kind of come back to overall too, what Mike is saying, is that as a school board, we need the input to understand, you know, how to address these things, the staff needs, the staff education, the administration education, all of those things that we can support. How do we help break down any barriers that they have in order to make those things happen? We are not as a school board, we're not the ones standing in front of the kids, educating them and you know, seeing where they're at and all that kind of stuff. That's not our role. It's our role to break down the barriers, set the policies, make sure that they have the appropriate support that they need to do their job. And whatever we can do to facilitate that, that's what I see the role of the school board being.
And I'm just gonna piggyback off of Aaron and Mark a little bit. and I wanna focus more on the struggling because it isn't seeing firsthand with my wife being in the elementary school and talking with those kids and parents and stuff, it isn't necessarily that they're struggling for a various thing. They're going to have that meeting and tell them what they can do, and the parents will either don't believe it, or that can't be our kid. Our kid is grade A, and how can you be saying these things? And it's partly a denial piece, and that I think is more of the challenge with the struggling than getting the kids to help themselves, is breaking the barrier of understanding what the kids need and because you can't be the parent for them, helping them understand what the kids' needs are and giving them the tools so that once they get out of the classroom, they can continue that help at home and so forth, so that struggling kid can get more to the average spectrum, so we can push the struggling to the averaging, get everybody at least average, and hopefully shooting for the stars.
Okay. Mike, I think you're up next. Some of you have talked about this, but what role do extracurricular activities play in the education of our students? So athletics, drama, robotics, art, student council, all those groups. Kind of what's your philosophy about those?
I think those programs help kids to socialize, and those are skills that they are gonna need to have as they go out in society. They're gonna be socializing with all sorts of people in many different cultures these days, many different careers these days, but having a foundation of learning how to socialize with people, and also to build something. You know, a team builds something. A team builds a good team. Everybody has the skills. Everybody works together as a team. In a social environment, everybody kind of talks to each other, and out of that will come maybe leaders, maybe people who are the doers, maybe the people with the ideas. So developing social skills I think is really important. I know a lot of engineers who are fantastic with their technology, but they have very poor social skills, and it's very unfortunate. I was very fortunate to have done, class play, to work on building something together. And as I look back at my career, it's the building something together and being proud as a team that you've done that.
For me, I've mentioned activities a couple times and the learning that happens there. The other piece that I'd emphasize, and this gives the kids a chance to explore the things that interest them. They choose to participate in those activities, and they choose because it's something they want to explore, there's something they're good at, something they want to understand. Yes, the social aspects of it and the team building, but we have individuals, the individual sports too, whether it's wrestling or swimming, tennis. Those tend to be focused on that achievement, that excellence, understanding both the team aspects and the individual, your contribution to what's going on. To me, there's nothing better than to understand, and participate. For many, and for many kids, this will probably be some of the last times that they do some of these activities, the last times that they have time to participate in a play, that they have time to participate in a sport. Very few of them will go on to college, and obviously much fewer less will ever have a profession that they're going to be in that. But this is their time to explore that thing, decide what they like, what they don't like, and be part of the community in doing that. I think there's that education that comes through that experience of being part of the community that does something like that, and what they'll experience afterwards from that are life lessons that you can't learn in the classroom. And it's important for us to continue to participate, continue to have those activities. It's why we chose to change conferences again, going back to the Mississippi BEA, because it gives our students more opportunities. That's what we can do as a school board.
Coming from a guy that did a lot of extracurriculars in his day, I can attest to Mike's comments and Mark's comments, the different things that you can be a part of, whether it's having the lead role in a play or being a captain on a sports team or the debate team or whatever it is, it does give you those extra personal skills, social skills, but also be able to be part of that team atmosphere. The other one comment that I would make though with extracurriculars is that they are just that, they are extracurriculars. Our first priority as a school board is to educate, and extracurriculars is a benefit of doing well in school. If you don't carry the grades, you don't get to play. So that's the one comment beyond what Mike and Mark has said that I would share.
We live in a world where sports and movies and artists are everywhere. Kids look at it every minute of every day, idolize it. Extracurriculars give our kids a chance to explore that, to go out and see what they like, what they want to be a part of. But the biggest thing about extracurriculars is it gives kids a chance to just go have fun. To be a part of a team with peers that are all in the same area because they all have the same like. And except for a couple of elective classes in the high school, it's not that way in school. So the extracurriculars actually give us the opportunity to go out and be with a number of people who are doing what we enjoy, and they enjoy it. And of course, along with that comes the team building and all the opportunities that come with that. And I think it's one of those things that we really have to realize that the extracurricular, especially sports, robotics, things like that, that's a reason a lot of our kids show up for school. They gotta be here to be a part of school so that they can get to the football, or they can get to soccer, they can do the swimming. So it gives them a reason to come to school and try and do their best here at school so that they can be a part of that extracurricular.
Mark, back to you. So Mark, where do you think the line is drawn between something that could be considered free speech or hate speech or something along those lines, where students have some freedoms but also they're regulated at schools? Where does that line fall for the schools?
Just a real easy question, just, outline why we have the First Amendment and why it may or may not apply in the school, right?
And in 2 minutes.
Yeah. One of the things that immediately comes to mind, I think, is that every situation is in itself unique. In understanding and what you need to do to support the free speech and those aspects when you can, but also having a line that's clear. You talked about how many times you heard about and talked about the walkouts that happen at various times in support of whether you want to talk about gun control or the support of the Second Amendment. I think that we need to understand that balance, and if the school, if there's and support it adequately. When we had the walkouts here, we supported that with additional police support, making sure that the kids were safe, that they understood, going out, coming back in, how that's going to affect them, what the policies are for attendance, what the policies are for speech, and now everybody's worried about what the kids are wearing as far as the words and stuff that are on there and how that can affect people. Good grief! Now you're even bringing up to me with Shane and getting punched. Where do we? There's a spot where we cross the line, and you can't support that, and you're going to suffer the consequences. And I think the kids need to understand that. And we have to have the policies and have the conversation about what's happening in our current world so that we can make sure that everybody understands what the follow-up is going to be, what the consequences are, and how we're gonna support it and make it safe.
I think I'm gonna piggyback off of Mark's a little bit and just add that, one, there should be a common sense factor in there as well. At least in my mind, I think there's common sense what is free speech versus hate speech, and then also in like the walkouts and Second Amendment, all of that stuff is civility. I mean, if we're all about, and I'm gonna use the guns a-blazing, it's one thing, but if we can have a decent conversation without punches being thrown and all of that stuff, just people being human beings rather than picking a political side or religious organizations, whatever the case may be, the world in itself would be a better place as well. So I think that's what I would.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, where's kind of the line drawn for students to have free speech versus, something that can be considered hate speech, and how does the school navigate that?
I think the line is drawn at purpose or intent. What my son might put on as a shirt that he thinks is just a cool shirt to wear and come to school, and somebody says, hey, I'm offended by that, you're encroaching. I think it really goes back to purpose and intent. This is a conversation we just had at the board table last month. Can you really regulate that? Something is gonna offend everybody. He drove a Chevy truck, that offended me. It's that very fine line, so where you draw that line, I think, has to be the purpose and intent of why something's being done, or why it's being said, or why it's being written or shared. And again, that's something that you need to go back as far as policies. We really need to go back to the staff and the community, and that, I think, is one of those that we probably will visit again as it comes up here. It's, if you answer that at this table, you should run for president, because that's so in depth.
Aaron Jurek for president.
That's a great question, thanks. That's a great question, but I think as far as the school district, you really have to look at it as far as purpose and intent. Was it done intentionally to hurt somebody's feelings or to cause situations or issues at school, or was it just hey, I grabbed the shirt out of the closet and it just happened to say the saying on it? I didn't think anything of it.
Glad I was last on this. The purpose of a school is to have a safe and exciting and learning environment for students to come to. And where your free speech right imposes on somebody else's right to learn in the school, or responsibility to learn in the school, I think that's where you have to draw the line. Sometimes free speech, people say, well, I wore this shirt today and it said something on it, like you said, you pulled it out of the closet and put it on, and you didn't even realize what it said, you don't realize what it meant to somebody else. So part of what you have to understand, if you're gonna exercise your right to free speech, you also need to think about how that's gonna impact somebody else. Is it gonna impact the learning environment? Is somebody gonna be offended? I had a Korean student with me that lived with me for a few years in high school, and they were talking about World War II and dropping the bomb on Hiroshima. The teacher didn't want to offend, so she talked to the student about this, and the student said, hey, I was from Korea. We didn't have anything to do with that. So, but I think you need to understand, if you're gonna say something, you need to understand how that might impact people. You might have a valid reason for saying, I think I believe in the Second Amendment. I think I believe I have the right to support a sports team on a t-shirt. Some people will talk about the Confederate flag and whether it should be on my pickup truck or not on my pickup truck, because it's a Dukes of Hazzard car. Old school. So I think you need to understand that we're responsible as a school board to have a safe and exciting learning environment for students. And where that free speech infringes on that, we're gonna have to set the line and say, no, you can't do that. And that's gonna be done through school board policy and talking with students, and maybe the problem even goes away if you just talk to somebody and they say, I'm sorry I wore that shirt. Have the discussion as well. I'm sorry I wore that shirt, it was an inappropriate place. I've seen kids wear shirts to church that I am just appalled at. And I don't think they understand that maybe they don't have enough, sometimes just a lack of knowledge or a lack of respect for the other people in the group.
All right, well, we've reached the end of our, have you gone yet, Ryan? You went, yeah, correct, yes. So we've reached the end of our questions. Timing wise, it's working out perfect. Do you want to mention to people that after the forum, the candidates, I think, have agreed to stick around and mingle?
Any cookies left?
Mr. Olson, we have cookies left?
No.
Yes. All right. Probably violates our wellness policy, but we'll suspend that maybe for a few minutes.
Kids are denied the cookies, just thrown out there.
So we'll come to a point where we'll give each candidate up to 2 minutes for closing statements, and we'll actually start with Mark since Ryan did the opening that way.
Hey, you get the double whammy.
So,
Yeah. Thank all of you guys for being here, for those people that are watching this, hopefully you'll take, what we said, with the intent that it's, I think it's a good natured thing in trying to answer some of these questions on the fly. Some of them we had time and some of them, rephrasing that kind of stuff, but, Mark, thanks, for kind of hosting, facilitating, and keeping us all in line, okay? But I think, I'll come back to the core reasons for me running. I'm here to serve the community. It's a core belief of mine. From my military service onward, and continuing to do that. I look forward to serving the school district, hopefully, again, with your support over the next 4 years to continue the direction that we've started over the last 8 years and have continued to move forward. As Dr. Malone retires and we have a new person come on board, that we can, again, continue that upward trajectory. There's Jim Collins and some others and some of the business things on Good to Great. I mean, it's that continued to not have that dip, to continue upward and renewing each time and setting new goals, understanding the direction that we need to go in with the policies that have been put into place, and the support that we have from the community and our continued support of them, so that we continue to get better as a school district. That's what I'm here to do, to serve over the term, if you'll have me as I continue on the board.
Thanks for having the forum tonight. I think this was good, and I look forward to more feedback. As I mentioned, I was on a school board before, and when I moved to Becker, I was probably not as familiar with the community. But I think it's time now, after being here for 18 years, for me to step up and commit to helping the school district, to helping the community continue its good education here and maybe make it better. I've got a lot of experience, as I said, in team building, in school board training when I was on my previous board, understand the function and how the board should operate. But again, I've also listened to students, grandkids who are in school, my kids who were in school. Some things worked well for them, some didn't. They had to get some reality checks along the way. So I hope that I can convince people that I'm committed to spending a lot of time working here on the school board and figuring out what works best for the students. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for coming. Thanks for hosting this. I think it's a great way for the people to hear from the candidates that they have to choose from. Unfortunately, there has to be a choice this year. There's only 3 spots and there's finalists. So thanks for hosting this tonight. I love living in Becker.
you know, I'm proud to tell people that this is where I'm from. I'm proud to wear the Becker shirts to school. I'm proud to see it on my back and on the stickers on my windows. Becker's got a great name. They know what we do here, and they know the great things that we're doing in our schools. We moved here in '99 because this is where we decided we wanted to put our kids, and we've stayed here because we see the great benefits that our boys have had coming through the system in the schools, sports activities and different things they've been involved in. You know, just in my short time on the board, we brought iPads have come into the districts. We brought the Wellness Center out, which has been huge, thanks to Mr. Colbinger and Ryan here for that. We brought the robotics team, which has done outstanding. We brought on girls lacrosse. We brought boys lacrosse is coming on. We brought a lot of great things back to Becker now that the funding is there. I think my 2 years my 2 terms on the board, I've proven to be a great listener out in the community, listening to what's going on, the ideas, and bring those discussions back here to the table and to have that with the board. You know, I love the community, and this is a way that I can give back and help be a part of it and help to continue that. Becker's excellence continues. You know, the motto is, you know, Minnesota's best kept secret, and I think it is. Becker's a great place to be, and I just want to be able to be a part of that and to continue that into the future. So, thank you.
And last but not least, I'll add the 4th, thank you all for coming. Like Aaron said, it's good to hear what all the candidates have to say. I'm gonna go back to the reasons why I just chose to run. I've lived in the district for 14 years. I have 3 kids now in the district, early ages, as high as 5th grade. So unlike Aaron and Mark, I'm on the early stages of the school career versus the latter stages of the school career, and I've got a teacher that works in the district as well. We also have some choices that have to get made in the coming years, and I want to bring value to that. We've got, with Dr. Malone's departure coming, we've got a new superintendent coming. We've got contracts that are gonna have to be renewed and a referendum coming. And with my accounting background, I'd like to bring that knowledge to the table so I can see how those negotiations and all that, how that impacts the budget, to see if we've got the money or if we need to move money, shift programs, whatever the case may be. And then also, as I've said all night, is I want to continue the mental health drive. Kids need help, whether it could be the smallest of things or the biggest of things, and I want to make sure that the kids have all the resources available. So, thank you again.
All right, let's have a round of applause for all our candidates. You guys are perfect, hour and a half, so that was wonderful.
We planned that.
In parting, one thing to keep in mind, and I can attest to this, having served on city council for 4 years and being an assistant principal for 8, I see some other elected officials around. The idea of unsolicited positive feedback is kind of a rarity. So if you get a chance in your life, call an elected official and thank them for something they've done, because it's a lonely job. I'm sure you don't get a lot of positive phone calls. I didn't. When I would call parents, in fact, and ask how your day was going, they would always say, great, until you called. So you want to just think about that. If you can offer them any encouragement, it helps them have a little balance in their life. So have some refreshments, stick around, greet the candidates, drive safely. Thanks for coming.
The baby one.